the video starts, make sure you follow our socials in the description and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Welcome back to the Offbeat Podcast, back again this week, and I am joined by a very special guest, travelling all the way from the sites of sort of Liverpool, Wigan area.
Dalton. Near Skelmersdale.
Near Skelmersdale, we've got Skelmersdale United's football club chairman, Frank Hughes here. How are we, mate?
Not so bad, but as I said to you before, feels rather bizarre sitting in a barber's shop. A
bald man in a barber shop. A bald, clean-shaven man in a barber shop as well.
Yeah, let's be honest about it. Yeah, I can grow it if I want it, but I just don't want it.
There was a lot of people who say there's going to be a lot of people walking past thinking, what is happening in there?
I know, yeah. I mean, I've not even got a beard to trim, have I? It's crazy.
People are like, what are they talking about in there? Excellent. But, mate, thank you very much for coming down here. And we alluded to it in that intro there, that you are the current chairman of Skelmersdale United in the North West Counties League at the moment. Is that right?
Division 1 North, yeah.
Division 1 North, yeah, which is... sort of like, it's almost like a sleeping giant, because you've had a couple of relegations, haven't you, recently? A couple moving down there. So how is life sort of adapting to this new division?
Well, we got demoted a couple of seasons ago because of ground grading issues. We failed a FIFA bounce test at the JMO. And then we went to ground share at Bersco. It's difficult. We're at the lowest end of the non-league pyramid, so it's not easy. And we're ground sharing, of course, at Bersco. There's not a great deal of income, so that makes a huge difference. The gates are not particularly great, and of course, when you're sitting at the bottom of the table, the supporters that you had sort of drift away, and that's pretty much what's happening now.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because in a league like you're in at the moment, you've got some clubs who are on the rise, recently starting out, for example, like your Drozdens, who are just coming back. You've got obviously Main Road, who was sort of on the rise as well. And then you've also got a lot of clubs who are just sort of trying to get used to there. So it's a little bit of a hard league to sort of judge, isn't it? Because all it takes is 3 players to come in and then suddenly you're pushing up there. You get a few wins and you're pushing sort of up the league.
I think we underestimated it, to be honest with you. I've often mentioned the fact that over the years, the sort of non-league football's been watered down a little bit. So the extra divisions that we ended up, we only had one division, Northwest Counties, then Northwest Counties 2. So we've got 3 divisions now. And a lot of those teams have come from Liverpool. There were some of the smaller teams that probably started out as Sunday teams, then Saturday amateur teams, and there's a plethora of good, talented footballers out there now. And like I said, I think we took it for granted. There's a really great depth of quality amongst these teams, and we I don't think we took it for granted, but we certainly didn't think it was going to be as difficult as it is.
It's hard because it's, as you're saying, there's so many clubs. Like if we're using round here, for example, so we film in Glossop, for people who are not too aware, you've obviously got Glossop here. I mean, you've got 15 minutes down the road, you've got Stilby Celtic, you've got Hyde United, Ashton United, you've got Curzon Ashton. There's so, and then if you just go the other way, you've got Buxton. It's mental how many clubs are, and obviously we talk about Liverpool. You've got obviously you've got Burscough, you've got Marine, you've got yourselves, AFC Liverpool.
There's Lower Breck, City of Liverpool.
There's so many in there.
There's an awful lot, and it makes it a little bit more difficult because you don't get as much floating support as you might have got back in 10, 20 years ago. There's not a great deal of floating support because there's more teams to go and support.
So do you feel like your fans that you're getting at the moment who come to the games, are they just your core group who have always gone to Skem? Is it hard to sort of get, because obviously you're strong with Burscough as well.
There's a core group that there always has been. The supporters that have sort of recently jumped on the bandwagon, so to speak. So we've got new supporters as well. But it's difficult when you're in the predicament we are with very little resources in terms of finances. It's very, very difficult to attract support, particularly when you're bottom of the table.
Especially because some of the budgets you've probably got, I mean, There's no secret in sort of like the non-league pyramid at the moment. There's a lot of money going around, and there's a lot of teams who have big budgets. So how are you trying to find with sort of competing with them, bringing in players? Are you looking at your local sort of like Saturday teams, or do you go off word of mouth? Is it the manager who plays a huge part of it?
Well, Tommy Lawson's our manager. He resided over the football club during the most successful period Skelmersdale had. But about 13, sorry, it was about 8 years ago when he was last there. And when he stepped down from football management, he went into scouting and was scouting for Southport for 7 years.
Nice.
So he's kept his toes dipped in the water, if you like, so he knows a lot about what's going on around the non-league football scene. So he's recruited locally. We have quite a few players from the Stephen Gerrard Academy as well.
Nice.
So we tap into all areas, and Tommy's got the experience to, to find those players.
So would you say you've got one of the youngest sides in the league then?
Yeah, I mean the balance is not the greatest balance in terms of it's mainly young players. I mean we've got 3 brothers signed for us now, the Denton brothers, and the youngest of which is Harvey Denton, and he signed for us on Wednesday. He's just turned 16 on Monday. So the balance of the squad is less about experience and more about youth, and it's easier to attract the youth because some of these players individually are really talented players, but and if you put them into a side of experience, they would prosper really, really well. Put them together, and it's you've got to manage that. Then
It's a learning process.
It's a learning process for them all. And I said to Ruben Denton's dad yesterday at the match, I said to him, these kind of heavy defeats, how much effect does it have on the likes of Ruben and Harrison? And he said, well, they're not really affected by it because they're young. They get over it much quicker than seasoned players. Yeah. So we've got that going for ourselves in that way. But you don't want to carry on. You don't want to carry on losing. It'd be great if we had a good balance with a core of established players, more experienced players, to help some of these younger lads through. So we're learning as we go. It's not an established squad yet. I think give it 12 months, becomes an established squad. It wouldn't be in the position it's in now.
It takes time, doesn't it? It really does, especially sort of because a lot of your players you've got, it's probably the first foray into adult football, and if you compare him playing in, because a lot of them come through academies, don't they?
Yeah,
which is very much a sort of like a training exercise where they're just simple, lovely passing. You're playing on these nice Astro pitches, and then you go into men's football where you're coming up against a 33-year-old former NPL sort of defender who he's gonna hit you hard in the first 5 minutes and really teach you about men's football.
And they've got to adapt to that and very quickly. So they're going for. But surprisingly, a lot of these players have been playing adult football, been playing with adults for a long time. So they're not exactly weak, are they? You know, there's some decent, strong young players there that won't take any crap, shall we say?
Yes, yeah.
If I'm allowed to say that word.
You can say whatever. You can swear. It's not monetized, so don't you worry about that. It's because I love non-league football. I don't get to non-league football as often as I can do just because of the fact I'm a season ticket holder. But I love non-league football. What do you think is the big attraction of sort of like a non-league football club rather than your heavyweights of like the Premier League and the Championship?
I think it's more family orientated. You get to know people. You'll walk around the ground. You'll know every single person. I'd probably spend most of my time before a football game shaking hands, and probably carry on doing that throughout a game, because these are people that I've learned to know, come to know over the last 18 months while I've been back involved at Skem. So that's the greatest part of it, is knowing that you're part of a smaller family, but a family that understand each other. You do get exceptions to the fact that the people there that a little bit more disgruntled, but by and large, most of the core support of Skem are very, very keen to be part of a family and become friends rather than the football is. the football's the main thing, but it's not the. It's more about the friendship rather than the results. Yeah, listen, we want to win, but at the end of the day, we still have a laugh after the game. We still sit down, we get together, we go on walks, we have social nights. So we get to know each other really well. Which I was a season ticket holder at Goodison Park. I'm going to pick you up on something that you mentioned about the new stadium soon, but so I spent years there not knowing who I was sitting next to. So that's the difference, I suppose.
It's a huge difference. It just feels real. Like I went recently to Bury, came to Gossip, and there was about 700-800 people. Bury came over. I went on my own. I just thought I'd go watch 90 minutes of football. It cost me like £7-8, whatever. So I thought might as well go down. Met about 10 people there, just casually, just wanting to chat to me. I was listening to all these Bury fans telling me all about their experiences because I've never heard it from. I don't know any Bury fans.
Yeah,
and it just feels a lot more real rather than this Instagrammable. I need to take this video of my favourite player, or I need to do this. It's more of a case of, oh, I know him, or oh, I know someone who knows him playing football, which is quite interesting for me as personally. Do you find I wanted to talk about your sort of day-to-day life as a chairman, because I've interviewed sort of like managers and players, but never from the back room, which I suppose a match day for you is probably quite hell because it's very, very busy.
Listen, the entire build-up to it doesn't matter whether it's on match day or not. It's a 7-day-a-week job, looking after a football club as small as Skelmersdale United Football Club, believe it or not. Match days in many ways become sort of a relief because you get to actually go and see the game that you the reason why you're there. But the minute that I'm always full of nerves before a game, more so now because the results are not going our way. I think we've had 17 defeats, two draws. It's not great. I'm watching it, feeling really overcome with emotion recently because of the situation that we're in, and trying to find and literally standing there looking up to the clouds and for inspiration and say, what can we do to make things different? What can change the position that we're in? And it's not easy. It's non-league football at its barest.
Brutal. It's a brutal industry. So what are your sort of like usual commitments during the week then? Do you sort of have like a day by day, so like every Monday you'll do like the programme or sort that out, or how does it sort of work for you on a day to day sort of basis?
Well, if we've got a match coming up, then the programme editor expects me to put my match notes together, so I'll get that. So if we've got a midweek game, then I'll probably start on a Sunday, so it's ready to go to the printers by Monday. As it is now, we're playing every Saturday, so I get me match notes in, programme notes in before Wednesday. So that's the build up to that side of things. There's things like we had a Remembrance Day service yesterday. So arranging, our guest was Yvonne Gagan, who's the head of the West Lancashire Borough Council. So we've invited her down, the Veterans Association. There's things like that to do. The vice chairman has sorted out a wreath. So all of those. Listen, there's a lot of things. The kit. My wife washes all the kits. So she washes the. We had a fallout with the laundrette. So we decided in the hour we were looking round for another laundrette. What happened was I rang this laundrette up in Ormskirk and I said, listen, we've had a bit of a fallout with this laundrette, and we need somebody to look after, do our kit for us. And I probably went a little bit more in depth than I should have done. She turned around and she said, "That's my daughter you're talking about." I didn't realise it was.
Closely connected.
They were that closely connected. So in the end, we just decided. Rowena, my wife, decided, "Oh well, listen, I'd sooner do it myself." And that's the situation now. She does the kit for the first team and the academy side.
Nah, it's just all going on in your house. It's very much a family affair then.
Yeah, well, my son works on the gate, so he does that. My daughter works upstairs in the bar at Bearsco's ground. My wife works on hospitality before the game and during the game, half time. And we like to pride ourselves on the fact that we think, personally, we've got the best hospitality in the league, bar none. So we're, very, very family orientated, which is good. I was sat down, but my wife went away last weekend because we had do we have a week off? Yeah, we had a week off, and she went to her daughter's up in Newcastle. And she come back on the Sunday, and I'm watching football. I think I'm getting away with it here. She's sitting there, and she said, "Oh, you know what?" She said, I quite like football now. I don't know what it is. She said, if I'd have known I liked football this much, she said, I wouldn't have got divorced from my first two husbands. So that's the situation that I'm in now. She's invested, fully invested in the football. My eldest son is, and like I say, my youngest daughter, she works up behind the barn. She helps out on social occasions as well. So it's very much a family orientated thing for us now, hobby, whatever you want to call it. I've walked out the house this morning. It smells like a laundrette. The kit's all hung up now, washed from yesterday. It's great to know that you've got family people that understand what you're going through at the same time, and they seem to be going through the same emotions as me now. Yeah,
because non-league football relies on sort of volunteers as well. So do you have like a core group of volunteers on top of your family who sort of help you out?
Yeah, we have some really great volunteers. As an example, today, Derek Hunt, one of our directors, he's 84 years of age today. Absolute stalwart of the football club. And he keeps saying to me, Frank, are we ever going to get back into Skem before I pop my clogs? And like I feel as though my main job is just for Derek Hunt, and that's to get us back. Before he pops his clogs. Bless him. But yeah, he's 84. He's 84 today. Lovely bloke. Yeah, but there's loads of volunteers there. We have the Lupins who work on the gate sod programs and the Golden Goal. We have Eileen who does the turnstiles. We have John, our commercial director, and our financial director. There's my vice chairman, Gordon. There's, like I said, there's Kate, Sarah who works on the media side of things, and then our press officer is AJ Vergette, who's also your co-host on my podcast, the Speaking Frankly football show. So yeah, there's loads, and if I've not mentioned anyone, the absolute loyal band of supporters, and they're having to put up with the results week in and week out, and they do. We have our debates after the game. And we go home, lick our wounds, and we come back again and start all over again.
Start again, yeah. Because as we were saying, like, it's just such a hard industry to go in. I wanted to talk a little bit about your approach from sort of like player recruitment, because I've spoken to quite a few players, and usually, do you leave the player recruitment solely to the manager, or do you then come in once they've agreed to join to talk about money per week, or how does it work as a chairman's point of view, bringing in like recruiting?
I'm always a believer that you leave it to your manager.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'd say is the most important relationship at a football club is between the chairman and the manager. I have a really great relationship with Tommy Lawson. Tommy speaks to me on a day-to-day basis and talks about his recruitment. I get a lot of players coming to me personally. They might email me, they might ring me. I pass their details on to Tommy. If I know any of them, I can obviously give my critique on them.
Opinion,
And Tommy will, when Tommy came to the club during the close season, he asked me about players that were worth retaining. I gave him my view, and by and large, we sort of agreed to a degree. But it's such a small... The group of players in the area, everybody knows.
Everyone knows each other. I've learned that very quickly.
It's very rare that you don't know a player, and if you don't know a player, there's always somebody who close to you that knows that player, and you pick up very quickly. So in terms of scouting, Tommy spent 7 years scouting at Southport, so he knows in terms of recruitment, what kind of players to bring in. The problem is budgets, finances, and if you haven't got the finances, you're not going to attract the players.
Of course, yeah, especially when you've got, I mean, we alluded to, but Droylsden are like another sleeping giant, obviously. Unfortunately, they did go bust, and now they're coming back under their pace, and they've got the fans who can back it up, and that's what happens. Like you can afford to give a player an extra 50 quid a week or extra 50 quid goal bonus or whatever like that. So it's quite hard. Do you find that cup competitions are sort of key for yourself as a football club? Then do you see that actually if we get to, I mean, the first round proper qualifying, do you see that as like this is a must this year?
Yeah, probably the biggest disappointment at the end of last season with the relegation was the fact that because of the level that we're at now, we couldn't compete in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Now, I think it was back in 2020-21, Skem got to the first round proper of the FA Cup and played Harrogate Town. Now, they managed to obviously get the a decent amount of prize money in the build-up to that, and then on top of that, there was the bonus of the televised appearance as well. So they made a fair few bob out of that. Listen, that can make a huge difference. We talk about round about the same, I think it was the same year, Marine met Tottenham in the third round at their place, and they did a virtual ticket sale, and I think they amassed enough money in the end to build a 3G pitch. And if you can, I think it probably costs around about £1 million now to put a 3G pitch in. But once you've got that in place, it can generate as much as £260,000 to £300,000 a year.
Monday to Friday, you got
in revenue.
You've got also you can get five-a-side competitions. You can hire it out to schools. You can hire it out to anyone really.
Yeah.
And then you've got a business Monday to Friday sort of rolling, but. A lot of it can be down to sort of luck as well, I suppose, of getting there, because it's a cup competition, anything can happen, as we see time and time again. So,
well, it could have actually been the worst thing for Marine at that time, because it was during the pandemic when you could only play behind closed doors. So it would have potentially lost them an awful lot of money. As it was, it was a smart move by whoever done it at the football club at the time, and obviously Tottenham supported it, and so did the supporters, and it made them a bucket full of money, and they've channeled that money and the finances in the right place.
Which is what you need, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of clubs make a few bob in the FA Cup and then go and blow it all in 1 or 2 seasons, and that's not what you should do. And in many ways, Skem did it during the period where they were failing ground grading. They should have kept money for a rainy day, and they didn't, which has made my life more difficult this time round as a chairman. They're honest mistakes, but the mistakes nonetheless, and I think people have got to probably learn from the Marine model how to do it best when you do make a bit of money out of it. But yeah, listen, there's no doubt about it. If you can make money out of the FA Cup, it's great because it's good revenue. The FA VAR's a little bit less. The further you go in the competition, the more lucrative it can be. Listen, cup competitions, bar county cups and things like that, which don't bring anything in the loss. Your dream is to get, as a non-league football club, is to get to the first round of the FA Cup. If you get to that stage, then the dream is then get to the third round and play Everton or Liverpool, being a Scouser, you know what I mean?
Straight away, play probably more Everton than Liverpool.
Well, yeah, being an Evertonian, and I was going to bring up on the point you were talking about their stadium. I know we're going off subject a little bit.
Bramley Moor, yeah.
What do sort of the modern guy expect out of a stadium these days? That was my question to you. I
am a big believer that as a stadium in the Premier League, I think Man City's is probably one of the worst. I don't like it. It's not a football stadium. It's a Commonwealth Games athletics track that has been redeveloped into a football stadium. And I stayed over at the Titanic Hotel in Liverpool because my fiance graduated from uni there, and we were staying on the docks right outside, and it just looks a bit like an air fryer, or a bit like a stainless steel. Yeah, and
What do you think of it from inside, though? You've obviously seen the aerial.
Honestly, it looks like I could design it on a football game, on like a online football game.
I know, but I just don't know how a stadium is supposed to look from the inside.
Yeah.
I know what you mean from the outside. It looks as though it's got a little bit of tin foil wrapped around it, doesn't it?
Yeah. But even from the inside, like, because I saw a video on Twitter last week, and it's just disappointing because Goodison Park, don't get me wrong, it's got a lot of flaws. Like the away end, if you're at the top, you can't see anything. If you're behind a pole,
oh, well, yes, I've been there, yes.
But it's got character. It feels like a football ground. It feels real. It feels like there's a history and a heritage to the place. Whereas, you could put that upon... If we looked at every stadium in Europe that's been built in the last 10 years, they're just carbon copies. It's the same with football kits nowadays from a big team. They're all just carbon copies. And for me... I want a bit of character there, and I get why they're doing it. It's a great financial move for the club. If they stay in the Premier League, it'll be great. They'll be able to host more concerts, host more sporting events.
Make more money for them, yeah.
Of course, but for me, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's not real football for me. I'd much rather go to Glossop North End, which is just got a bar, it's got a pie up, and one stand. And it's real.
Well, listen, I've got to the position because we've got no ground. Every ground that I go to now that once used to perceive to be a hole, now is Wembley to me. So I get where you're coming from there. I think Goodison, the problem with Goodison is that if you're walking up the steps there, the steps are half the size of my feet, and if you're walking down them, you're prone to falling on them things. It is... It's well past its sell-by date. It's lovely when you get in there and you see that lovely green pitch. It looks better when there's nobody in there.
Yes.
To be perfectly honest with you. And I know but they all sort of look like bowls now, don't they?
They are,
bland.
yeah.
And like you say, from a financial point of view, they can hold concerts there and they can do all that. I don't think they could design that stadium any better.
No.
I don't think. Probably from the outside, yes.
They just need to do it right by the fans. The people who are in the Gladys Street end need to remain together.
Yeah.
Because that's where your atmosphere is coming from. That's where your core group... They've sat with each other for 20 years, a lot of the people who sit there, if not more. You need to do that right, because that is the fear that I have as a modern football fan of when you see a club move stadiums, it can lose a lot of the core fan base and what they love. Like at the moment where I sit, I know everybody 3 rows in front and 3 rows back of me. I sit bottom tier south stand behind the goal next to the away fan. So I know everyone around me, and it feels like I'm going to see my mates every couple of weeks who I don't usually see a lot of the time. And obviously you've now got the rumours of City expanding and moving away fans, maybe moving us, and corporate are coming into play and all these different things. And I'm like, Everton just need to make sure that they keep their core fan base as they don't think of money. That's what I hope they do, and just keep the fans happy, because that is the fear of me as a modern football fan. We'll have a little break, and then I want to talk in part 2 more about sort of like your 2 tenures as Skems chairman, and also about the Speaking Frankly podcast as well, and your foray into the world of media.
Thank you.
We'll see you in part 2. Part 2, welcome back, and we're going to dive in straight away with sort of like your 2 terms. Is this your second term as Skelmersdale United's chairman? So how long were you chairman the first time around then?
I was only chairman for actually five years. The overall chairman, I think before that I was the director of football, and before that I was a director. But my sort of journey with Skem goes back to the early 1970s. My dad was a director when they were the first in the Northern Premier League.
Nice.
And I often tell the story. He dragged me along as a little kid. I didn't really want to go to football, didn't understand it all. But eventually, bit by bit, the love for me came when because we hit on it before about what's the difference between non-league football and Premier League football. Well, I used to go into the clubhouse. My dad used to take me into the clubhouse after a game, and eventually you get to know the players, and the players would come up to you, they'd ruffle your hair and ask you how you are. Did you enjoy the game? Did you enjoy the goal I scored? So you'd get involved from that perspective. Then the interest grew, and then you start reading about the history of Skem United Football Club and the rich pedigree it had. And then I remember reading about Steve Highway had played at Skem.
Stevie Highway in the wing.
Yeah, one of the most famous sort of exports from Skem that went on and had a fantastic international career, as well as a career with Liverpool. It was just such a fascinating story. And my uncle used to live in Ainsdale, just round the corner from Steve Highway. And my other auntie and uncle lived on the other side of Ainsdale on Chatsworth Close or Avenue, I think it was. And on the corner lived Steve Highway. So I used to sort of hang around there kicking the ball, waiting for Steve Highway to come out. And he did often come out, and he used to do his garden. And then his wife would come out, and I'd end up having a conversation explaining that I'm a Skem United supporter. And his wife would come out, she'd serve us with a cold drink. My sister was there with me, serve us with a cold drink and give us a sandwich. And absolutely made up. So you get really keen and involved in it, and it never left me then. So I eventually became, got involved. Well, I carried on being involved. I used to sell lottery tickets and bingo tickets, and then eventually you want to get involved in the other side of the football and see whether you can do better than. I learned from the best, Arthur Gore, who was the chairman before I took over. And what I did is I sat in the background and listened and learned how to do the job first. So that's how I got involved. Got dragged along as a kid, and then you find a love for it. And when you're talking about the history of Skem, it's got a huge legacy, and I want to make sure that, from my perspective, this time round, that I continue it. Yeah, but I did. I was at the club, I think, from 2009 till 2013 as chairman. 11. 2006 to 2011 was my first tenure, and of course I resided over a club that was very, very successful at the time. We'd just been promoted from the Northwest Counties into the Northern Premier League, and we're doing really well. And during those 5 years, I think we qualified for the playoffs on 4 occasions. We won the Lancashire Cup. So we did really well. And the funny thing about it, and I often look back on it now, is during that successful time, I had me critics back then. And I say to anybody now that I didn't rest on my laurels first time round. I took on board all the criticism. I think it's good always to listen to constructive criticism, and it's put me in a better shape for this time round when things are more difficult.
Of course, yeah, because at the end of the day, everybody deserves to have an opinion, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have an opinion, whatever you're doing. So, like, it's like when the most common question I get asked is, how do you deal with, like, negative comments? And I couldn't care less. Like, I am very... Like, I used to do cold calling for a living. That was my first ever job. I had people effing and jeffing at me. So it was business cold calling. And that has sort of just moulded me into... He would never say that to my face, so... It doesn't bother me at all, like, negative comments and stuff like that. And sometimes the negative comments are the best ones, because, like, for example, I got one about the sound quality, and they said something about, it sounds like someone's having something done in the background, and buzzing, and I was like, buzzing, what could that be? But I realised it was one of the machines in the back that I just hadn't turned off. But so because of that negative comment, I was able to make a change, which has now been positive moving forward as well.
Constructive.
So, yeah, it's what's needed as well for you to grow, because we're always learning every day, aren't you? Especially as a football chairman. I mean, there's so many different avenues for you to go down, and many different things you're always going to be learning. Do you find yourself on a match day, you talk a lot to other chairmen and other directors of different clubs to sort of see their opinions on different sort of instances and stuff?
What's weird this time round, I mean, I'm not going to say it's less professional than it was first time round, but the further down you go, the more it is. And most of the chairmen don't sort of, they don't connect with it. You don't know one chairman from it. Okay. No, it's difficult really. And what I try to do is I try to I look around me, particularly in hospitality, and try to find out who the chairman is. I know quite a few of them now, but you have to go out of your way to find out who they are. It's like sort of there's no airs or graces, but there's no sort of pushing you together and shaking hands anymore, and that's sort of lost a little bit. And I'm not saying it's a lack of professionalism. It just seems to be that a lot of chairmen at this lower level probably racing back from work, and they probably had to throw the tea down the neck and then come to a football match, and they probably can't really be bothered with talking to anyone.
Oh yeah, especially if they spent all day talking.
But that's a sort of sad indictment on non-league football. If anything, that's the worst thing about I've known this time round is the lack of communication between chairmen. But I'm trying to break that a little bit by getting to know them through the podcast that you probably talk about later. But going back to what you were saying about the negativity and the online, the social side of things, it's a difficult one. I spent years thinking that the worst thing I could do was retaliate and go toe-to-toe in battle with the keyboard warriors. So rather than do that, this time round I decided, well, if anything's getting on my nerves, anything's bothering me, I'll put out a statement and try and answer questions as best as I can. And I know I've gone off the subject, but trying to go back to what you were saying before. It's all about communication, and some of them don't like they ask the questions, but when you answer them, they don't like the answers. And I'm trying to sort of draw people closer together, and I've been accused of being one of the most open chairmen in the league, and certainly in non-league football. But I think that's the right way to do it, and it all sort of goes hand in hand with communication with clubs and chairmen and directors. They should all be getting to know each other. But yeah, so. That for me is a bit of a sad point, because we don't sort of connect, before the games, by and large. But in terms of connecting with the supporters, we do it through this social media, which is good in many ways, but is bad in so many ways as well. Well, my first tenure as chairman, there was no such thing as. I don't think there was any such thing as WhatsApp, and if there was, it went right over my head. I'm in that many WhatsApp groups now. I have to be very, very careful, because I remember some WhatsApp group, somebody had said something to me, and then the next minute I thought I was replying to another WhatsApp group, and they said, he's a right pain in the backside, isn't he?
Yeah.
But because there was quite a few people on there, they were all asking, well, which one's the pain in the backside? So you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful with the communicating with people as well through that. So yeah, social media can destroy football. It can also help it.
Yeah, it can definitely bring people together. Because at the end of the day, every chairman is in the same situation across the leagues, because everybody's struggling with different things, like different finances, getting players in, gate receipts, all sorts. So you need to talk and learn from each other as well, because everyone's in that same boat. Do you find that, because does that still happen as it used to back in the day, as in like the clubhouse element where the players and the manager will go into the clubhouse after the game and speak to the fans? Does that still happen as it used to?
It's changed. It's really, really changed. We had an away journey to Selby in the FA Vars. And one of the fathers, Phil Priestley, he's the goalkeeping coach at Harrogate Town. He just dropped his son off, and he looked at just outside the coach was there was a stack of crates of beer and what have you, and he said, "Wow," he said, that back in the day, he said, that for me was an 8-tinner. That he's an ex-goalkeeper. He said, that's an 8-tinner for me on a coach trip back from a cup game. And I said, you can come on, there's space. And he said, I can't. He said, it's Alex's 21st. He said, I've got to go the whole show. He said, but I'm going to the game. And anyway, we got to the end of the game, and he said, Frank, he said, this is how different things have changed. He said, half of your players now have got off with the parents. He said some of them have got off with their friends. He said, when you get on the coach now, he said, you have a look and see how many people, how many of them players will have a drink, will have a can. And they don't drink. They're more professional, they look after themselves better than they've ever done before. So in terms of after-match, when it comes to an after-match at home, and there's hospitality on, there's food, half of our players don't come up.
Really? Interesting.
They don't. You see more of them before a game than you'll ever see afterwards, and you try to get them. But then we're in a position where I think we probably had, in the entire squad yesterday, the average age was probably about 19, 20.
Yeah, most of them
There was
can't
three.
come up, yeah.
There was one 16-year-old, two 17-year-olds. So they're probably getting lifts from the parents anyway.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, which is it means they can't, because a lot of teams and stuff, and what I like of non-league football is if you go to watch someone, you can probably have a drink with them afterwards or have a chat with them afterwards. Or it makes you feel a bit more connected. I mean, it's the reason why you fell in love with Skem, like, really.
Well, I think that the best part of football is the interaction, speaking to people. I say it when we go training on a Wednesday night to the JMO. I enjoy going to the training because you're talking to the players. You get longer to speak to the players before and after. There's a greater sort of feeling, and some of the supporters come along to the training sessions as well. But it's lost. It's not like it used to be. At the end of a game, they'd come into the clubhouse, they'd play pool. You'd be playing killer, with the supporters. They're not doing that anymore, but they don't drink.
Yeah, of course.
There's very, very few of them drink anymore. They really, really do look after themselves.
Mm-hmm. So we alluded to in the first part as well about the move back to Skem United, which you said very openly is your number one priority on there. So, I mean, the problem is obviously going to be finance and stuff. So what are the next steps for moving Skem? Are you expecting to do it over the next 10, 15 years, the next 5 years, or?
Oh, crikey, I don't think it could wait that long.
Obviously, it's as soon as you possibly can.
Well, yeah, and listen, it probably will be as long as, it probably could be as long as 5 years. What we tried to do is we tried to get back to the JMO, and I think I explained in the first part of the show, we lost. We were demoted from that league because we failed the FIFA bounce test.
Yeah.
Now, in order to replace that carpet, as I call it, on that pitch, would cost in the regions of £300,000, and that figure was mentioned to me last season. So that figure has probably gone up. So in order for us to get back there, that would the landlords would have to be able to afford to do that. I don't know whether that's ever going to happen, but we talk. We've at least had the conversation. I think at the end of the day, what we need is our own ground. We need our own clubhouse because as great as the JMO would be short term for us, we wouldn't have the revenue from a clubhouse. The revenue from a clubhouse can be quite considerable.
It's key.
Well, listen.
You said about social events. There's all sorts you can put on in there.
Yeah, well, we did a race night a few weeks ago. Really successful one. Raised £2,500 through raffles and such like, and through the races themselves. But then the revenue went into Newborough Sports Club, which, listen, they kindly offered the venue for free, which was great, but that's lost revenue. So, we need a stadium of our own, preferably a 3-4G pitch, whatever they call these days, in order to raise that additional revenue, because you can't rely solely on sponsorship. No. The worst thing for me as a chairman is at the end of the season is looking for sponsorship the season afterwards, and it's a lottery. You're waiting to see whether people are going to continue the sponsorship, and sometimes they don't, and you've got to go and find other sponsorship. For 2 years, I think we went without a front of shirt sponsor, which cost us a considerable amount of money. So then, in terms of investment, you're looking at private investment, people helping me, putting me hand in my pocket to keep the club going at times. In order to just pay for a kit for the season. I think it costs around about anywhere between £2,500 and £4,000 for a kit, and then you've got your tracksuits and your training gear on top of it. It costs a considerable amount of money, and if you haven't got those revenue streams on a regular basis, relying on crowds turning up, it's great if you start the season and you've won your first 5 games, the gates automatically go up. If you lose your first 5 games, they go down. You've got nothing to fall back on. You've got no income generated from a 3G pitch. You've got no clubhouse. And you've got really no community spirit either.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. It is a hard way to sort of build it back up. But I agree. I mean, if you get that move back to Skelmersdale, you can sort of build up. But it's about finding the right thing, right timing, and right timing for the club really as well on there. And I wanted to move on to your podcast for Speaking Frankly podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's very different sort of style to Offbeat on here. It's more like a show. Would you call it it's like an old form sort of like radio show, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I remember I don't know even whether it carried how long it carried on for, but there used to be a non-league hour on Radio Lancashire, and I used to love the format of it because they'd introduce guests, whether it be a chairman or a manager, and I think they'd even talk to kitmen. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it got to sort of the nitty gritty of the
real side of football.
Yeah, the real side of non-league football, and then they'd talk about. They'd have a roundup then of results and their predictions for the week ahead, which I always found a great format. There's a lot of things going on in non-league football at our level, and as anybody that listened to the last show, we had a couple of guests from the Mighty Shakers podcast to discuss what's going on at Bury, and I thought, what happened? A lot of things get lost in translation, and I thought it gives it an opportunity, a platform for some of these more delicate issues to get discussed on. So
of course,
we invited 2 people onto the show, and we discussed it. I think we handled it well, and maybe people have got a little bit more understanding of it, because we were talking about a supporter, a lifelong supporter that had been there for 6 decades, had been told that he was no longer welcome at the football club. He was no longer needed, and rightly so. A lot of people were upset, and they wanted to know why. That information's still not forthcoming, and that's why I was talking before about chairman. It's important that chairmen do communicate with the supporters, and social media. They've got to be open and honest with people, because that all gets lost. So the show gave people an opportunity to discuss that in a more neutral manner, and maybe look at whether there was a solution to the bigger political problem, which is not just the ex-CEO or the chairman that stepped down from Bury, but it was a lot more deep-rooted than that. And I don't think I fully understood what was going on at Bury until I started digging a little bit and reading it a bit more. And still, there's a great deal more I'd like to know about it. But I feel confused and frustrated as much for them as I do for myself, and I want to answer those issues, because even at my level at Skelmersdale United Football Club, there's a load of politics surrounding that. And like I say, social media can be good. It can be a great platform for expressing and telling people and being honest with them. But it can also be quite divisive and destroy a football club. And the worry is with Bury at the moment, what's going on there, the sort of cultural war, is that there's a possibility that things will implode. And if people don't talk about it, that's why...
How are we going to learn? Yeah, and how are we going to improve?
That's why shows like these are important.
Mm-hmm. So how do you sort of structure your show then? Do you have like segments that you do every week, or how do you sort of structure your show?
Well, we try to talk about controversial issues like referees, which is always a good point to start from. We have sin binning at our level. We can't quite understand it. One year, when it was first tested, it was just a sin bin where you went off the pitch for 10 minutes, you came back on. If you came back on and you were naughty again, you got a yellow card. Now, if you get sin binned, you get a yellow card as well. We've not seen the yellow card while the sin bin while we've been playing this season. But it's a controversial issue because we often question whether it's just now a money making racket for the various regional FAs or not. And got to be careful what I say, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
But so we talk about things like that. We have interviews with managers, chairman. We had the vice chairman of Ashton United on, Steve Hobson, the other week. We had Atherton LR's manager Dave Jones on last week, and of course David is Dave Jones is only 25 years of age, cutting his teeth as a manager and doing extremely well.
Same age as me, yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Well, he got to the playoffs last season. They missed out in the semi-final there, and this season they're riding high at the top of the North West Counties Division 1 North. So it gives them a platform to come on and discuss their progress of football club and understanding them as well. It met some really incredible people during this brief journey, as it is very much a fledgling show, and we'll probably change from week to week. But like I say, we do have a roundup of results and predictions, like the Lancashire non-league hour had. We had 2 interviews this week, like I said, with the Mighty Shakers podcast and Dave Jones from Atherton LR. So listen, we'll discuss anything that's controversial, and discuss all the good things that are going on in non-league football as well.
That's a big reason. I'm going to highlight one point you made on there. And it's the reason why I do my podcast, meeting people.
Yeah,
I find it mental how I now know professional boxers, world champions, footballers, musicians. I'm going seeing Rosellas at the end of this month. I've interviewed them in the past. I now know Ewan, their bass player, on a personal level. He's a friend of mine. And it's just a great way of being able to just hear people's stories. So I work in sales. That's a big reason why I started this as well, to get out there, get into meeting people. And I love hearing people's stories, because how else are you going to learn about things that you don't know about already if you don't hear from someone's personal experience? So I think it's great what you're doing. It's great that you're highlighting the areas of non-league football that the average day-to-day fan probably don't see. And being able to have someone in a high position than you talking about this opinion, and maybe you'd be like, right, I can see where you're coming from that, or I can see where you're coming from that. So is your plans for the future of the podcast, are you going to keep it on like a weekly basis? Are you trying to move to are you going to try and move around the grounds maybe, or?
Well, I think I listened to your last podcast. You were talking to your Irish friend, was it?
Yeah, Hugh Murray, yeah.
And you were talking about how difficult it is to put a show together. I think people don't understand how difficult it is, and sometimes if you make the odd mistake here and there, you've got to edit it, or I don't know whether you go down that route or just throw it on. Sometimes I just throw it on and think, to hell with it. I don't even know what I've said. If I've said anything too controversial, that might get
there's hundreds of hours of me. I've said something somewhere, but Jimmy, I always fall back to Jimmy Carr saying, where don't be scared about what you say because you've already cancelled yourself.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Just be yourself, and then it should be all right there. But yeah, Hugh's a good lad. He's a great lad, and it's hard putting a show together.
How much of your time does this take? So you've done this show. By the time you've done this show with me, what's the process?
So the process from this is I need to edit the show. So I will edit in the program called DaVinci Resolve.
Right.
Which is basically like a free software because they advertise their cameras on there. The DaVinci cameras are like the best of the best. I can't afford them. They're Blackmagic cameras. They're unbelievable. But I edit it together on there. Probably take about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. I then need to create a thumbnail. I then need to think of a title, do descriptions, and then I need to go on social media. All while working a full-time job. So if there is ever a breaking podcast, it's because I'm busy with work, or I'm busy with football, or I'm busy with my life, really, as well. So.
And how many shows have you done so far?
91, I think. And that's not including my reviews, so I've now started doing music reviews as well. So I went to Kasabian last night. Review of that will be out soon as well. But it's a hobby. It's what I love to do.
And when you started out, I mean, I'm still nervous now doing it now, my own show, but you've got that many down the road now? Is it still difficult, or has it become more natural?
Oh, see, I the way I like to position a podcast is I'm talking to someone else. I'm not talking to a camera.
Yeah.
I'm talking to someone else, and then other people are just conveniently listening.
Yeah.
Whether they're caring about it or not, I don't know. But I like to make it personal, and I just want to be myself on a podcast. I'm never going to be a character. Sometimes when I'm on the City Ramble podcast, which is a big shout out to them, they call me the vibes person because there's a lot of people on that show who are a lot more analytical. They understand the game a lot better, but I like to have fun. And I see football as entertainment, so I'm always going to bring that entertainment value. So it's all about just sort of knowing what position you're in, knowing who you're talking to, and just being yourself. Because at the end of the day, people buy off people. That's my motto in sales as well. People will buy off me. They won't buy my product, they'll buy off me. So being able to interview different people, being able to get their life experiences is only going to ever help you in the future. And I'm sure you will learn that as you meet other chairmen, other sort of managers and stuff. You'll be like, even just a little thing like, say if you've never done, like if a chairman's listening to this and never done a race night, they might be thinking, why don't we do that?
Yeah, we all need advice.
We all need advice.
Yeah, and I think that I'm hoping through meeting more people through the podcasting that I'll learn more. I mean, I use GarageBand.
Everything works.
I use a hack now in terms of when I'm interviewing people on the phone. I just put my phone on speaker and I put it up by the mic. I mean, I've not even got down to the area of using Teams audio or another platform to do that. So very, very basic, but not having the time to really find out how to make it more professional, you know what I mean, to make the setup. And I use Libsyn as the sort of, what do they call, the platform to deliver it. But yeah, always looking for help and advice. But like you say, through podcasting as well, in terms of from sort of my genre, the non-league football, yeah, it could help. If a chairman learns anything from what I've said in any of my podcasts, then that's... I've done a fairly decent job on the podcast, I'd like to think. But in terms of whether I can do it, I have. The last 5 shows have been on a weekly basis. I'd like to keep it going on a weekly basis throughout the season. It's up to AJ and I whether we can stay fit. But there is going to be a gap, I think, next week. Not next week, the week after, because I'm away. So you can't possibly do it. But I'd like to have kept it as a weekly podcast. But you start out and you think to yourself, I'm just going to do this once and see how it goes, and do it maybe once a month, and then you've got guests lined up and you can't keep them hanging on for ages, can you?
No, that's the hardest thing for me as a podcast, because obviously you probably got a lot better, bigger contact network than me. A lot of what I do is off word of mouth or social media, and I'm not a big social media guy. I don't like social media. I'll never post about myself, really. I'm trying to more to learn it, but I don't like it. I'm more of I want to text someone. Or I'll never wish someone a happy birthday on social media. I'll text them because I'll know them well. But that's what I find the hardest about this, is finding the guests, because it takes up a lot of time. And if I'm working 8 to 5:30, then it can be a long time. But with this as well, this is all self-learn. This is... YouTube is a brilliant thing. Just learning about simple things, like all I did was what best cheap starting podcast. These mics for Samsung Q7U. Got 4 of these. The cameras I've just built over time. I used to record on a laptop. I used to use Audacity. Realised actually it's a little bit harder to do, so I managed to sell hoodies and get a machine on there as well. Yeah. So it's all a learning process.
I know it looks pretty basic, but then I'd seen the programs and I looked at the backdrop to it and I thought, this is amazing, looks fantastic. How did you manage to get this?
Rory loves a podcast. The owner of his barbershop loves a podcast. Yeah. And he likes the fact that there's different people coming into his shop as well. So I had Fat Sam Eats in, who is a food online creator, who Rory has just listened to. He watched him for years. And I said to him, I've got Fat Sam Eats coming on. And he was like, it's amazing. I've had Fat Sam Eats in my shop. And he loves it. Like whenever I come in every couple of weeks when I see him, he's always, who's coming up next? Have you got any gigs lined up? Have you got all this lined up? He loves it as well. So Dark Pete Barbers is a big reason why this podcast is still going. I probably would have had to stop without Dark Pete Barbers. So
I don't think it's doing him too many favours though, interviewing a bald bloke. You know what I mean? Not a good advert for the barbers, is it?
I've been in here with some bad tunes when I've not seen Rory, and I'm like, I need to make sure I get me a haircut in it.
Has he done any famous heads?
So he's trying to do a few sort of like conventions and stuff as well. Ironically, he knows a few like part-time footballers from around here as well, and his brother's got a shop in Buxton. So him and his brother actually went down to a festival. He got invited to, I think it was Download, he told me. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was Download Festival, Rock Festival. And he managed to get invited and cut artist hair before they went on stage.
Oh, right.
So that's a pretty cool story. I was loving that. Yeah. Can we shout out your social media? So the Speaking Frankly pod is that...
It's the Speaking Frankly football show, so it's slightly changed. It was the Speaking Frankly podcast, but it's the Speaking Frankly football show now. That's available on all your usual platforms. Yeah. And I'm just showing that Blue Sky. I don't know what that's all about.
I've just joined Blue Sky. I got told to, just in case it takes off.
Yeah. It looks as though it is as well. It's about to, because it's certainly everybody's talking about it now, aren't they?
Yeah. So, and then is your personal handles just Frank Hughes, or just Frank Hughes on all social media as well? And also, if you are thinking about maybe going to non-league football, please do, because as you've learnt on this podcast, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's vital for the survival of non-league football to get bums in seats. To get people
most definitely,
definitely. So if you're ever in and around sort of like the Lancashire area, the West Lancashire area, Merseyside area, check Skelmersdale United out. Really do help them move back to Skem as well.
Yeah, we definitely need the support, and we spoke to Steve Hobson the other week, the vice chairman from Ashton United, and he'd done a very smart thing when they were tumbling out of the Conference North and they had no money. He basically put the 5 chairs up the Dragon's Den, and he asked if there was any millionaires out there that would like to help the football club, and I think 2 of them came along. So he's hoping, you know, if you're listening in or you're watching and you fancy getting involved with an honest non-league football club rather than support all of these fancy dancy Premier League clubs, give us a shout.
Get involved, 100%. All of Skem United's links are going to be in the description of this episode as well. If you are on YouTube, please do subscribe. It really does help grow this podcast, and please do let me know who you want to see on there. Do you want to see managers? Do you want to see more football content? Do let me know, and I'll try and reach out and get as many people on as possible. And if you are on Spotify, please do give a 5-star review. That is what really does help organically grow this podcast as well. But Frank, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure meeting you as well.
Cheers. Thank you.